you very much, Daniel. This presentation has shown that in addition to IPR and business models, in order to succeed in this new challenge, there is also a need to consider technical aspects. And sometimes we can feel discouraged to enter into the technical aspects, but it is really, the issue is really to be able to put together rights, business models, content, and technical solutions. And it is the right mix of this that can make us successful. So thank you, Daniel, for having remembered that there is also some technology behind what we are doing. We are entering the last phase of the conference. I would like to call to the table the panelists of today. Thank you. We have a contingent time, and so I will be very strict in the administration of the time that is given to this panel. Basically, the idea is to come back to whatever has been discussed today and to put two questions on the table. There are many digital archives that are releasing their content online with the licenses that encourage their reuse. And this means to have different roles. From one hand, we have the institutional digital archives, portals, platforms that are releasing content. And from the other hand, there are those who are the contributors to these archives. They are often small archives, and they own collections that do not circulate so widely. And these are in particular those who can gain most from being more visible within the public domain. However, despite the constantly growing availability of digital content and the movement about the public domain and rights licensing for reuse, and we heard a lot about this today, the actual exploitation of this content is starting, but not fully happening on the market. And so the first question that I would like to pose to the panelists is that the first impediment to the exploitation of the digital cultural content by creative industries seems to be constituted by rights. There are still many digital archives that do not release their content with the licenses that allow their reuse, either because the reuse is just not permitted, because of the contributors do not allow this, or even worse, in the case of public institutions, because the way to license the content is still very complicated, and also often for the payment of small amounts. We heard this in the presentations of these 2 days. What the panelists would suggest to overcome this obstacle? Let me just read a short biography of the 4 panels, because you met them through the presentations, but they have not introduced. This time you talk on behalf of yourself. You are not representing your project or the project of your organization. On my left side, starting from my left side, Fred Truyen is a professor at the Faculty of Arts at Leuven University. He publishes on e-learning, ICT education, digital culture and epistemology. He is the head of the ICT services at the Faculty of Arts, and he is in charge of the Cultural Studies Digital, the media lab of the Institute of Cultural Studies. He teaches information science, and he is involved in many projects on open educational resources, as well as research and European initiatives. Fred is a program director of the MA in Cultural Studies. Following on my left, Prodromos Tsiavos is heading the IPR department at AVG Law Athens. He is a legal advisor for the National Documentation Center and a member of the executive board of the Greek Free Open Source Software Society. Prodromos has worked for the European Commission, Oxford and Oslo University, the Athens University of Economics and Business, and the London School of Economics and Political Science. He reads law and information systems in Athens and London, and holds a PhD in law and information systems. Harry Verwayen, he is well known also for the presentation for those who attended the yesterday conference about Europeana, and he is the Deputy Director of Europeana. Harry is responsible for the strategy, business and product development of Europeana. His main passion is the design and implementation of new business models that will support Europe in its aim to make our complete heritage openly accessible for work, learning and pleasure. Prior to this, Harry worked at the Amsterdam-based think tank Knowledge Land, where he was responsible for business model innovation in the cultural heritage sector. Harry holds an MA in history from Leiden University and has worked over 10 years in the scientific publishing industry. And last but not least, Leonardo Buzzavo teaches business strategy and entrepreneurship at the University of Venice. He is a director of the Master in Digital Economics and Entrepreneurship, jointly promoted with the Digital Academia in H-Farm, that is the incubator we will visit at the end of the conference, a local business incubator. He is also director at Foscari Digital Week, a biennial event focusing on the impact of digital technologies on the society, culture, and the economy. I wanted to read this because now that they will reply to the two questions, you have an idea of the different points of view. Thank you, and I will go ahead with this order. Please, Fred.
So your question about the rights issue, I think it's important that we have the right message in mind. What we are doing about rights to enable reuse is in a business-to-business setting where professionals discuss together about what they need to be able to have a reuse, and I think rights labels are very important in this content because an application developer can automatically assess what content he can reuse, so it's important. But this is, to my experience, not the message that you can give to the general public. They are not interested in that. They want to see content first. And what we see is that if we show a regional archive on Europeana, tens of other regional archives want to be on Europeana because they belong to the same community. And they say, oh, the Catalan archive is on Europeana and the Basque is not. And then they contact us and they say, how can we join Europeana? So it's very content-driven and it is community-driven. And I'm a strong believer in what we call communities of practice. It's not really the same as a professional community. It's the professionals and the stakeholders that form a kind of brotherhood, a kind of community amongst themselves. And we need specific messages for these people, and that's why I believe that we need middle organizations that represent those communities and that engage those communities. And then we can get really this reuse going, but having the kind of technical broad message alone is not enough. That's for the professionals, and I think we have this Pro-Europeana portal which is serving us very well as professionals to do all this, but we need that middle organizations take up and lead their communities and allay those fears, because there are a lot of myths about when I will put my content as public domain, I will lose control, I will lose money, people will start misusing this. This is all mythical. These are fears that are not realistic, and these communities need people close to them to explain that they should not be afraid. So a regional archive needs the voice of other regional archives to be convinced that it is okay to do so. And in this sense, the examples work. And so I would say content first, communities first, and then the rights will be explained as it should.
Thank you very much, Fred. Prodromos.
I would pretty much agree, but I will also focus a bit on the professionals and try to see what the problem is. The rights problem has two aspects. One aspect is to figure out who owns what on the content that actually exists in a particular collection. So especially for small and medium archives, you have collections which you don't know whether you own it. You don't know who has the intellectual property rights, and that's one problem. And the second problem is to actually figure out how you are going to license it. And these are two distinct problems. They are related but distinct. And of course, the solution to the first problem is to figure out which is the information with regards to this particular artifact which could allow you to figure out first whom it belongs to, second, how risky it is for you to reuse it without the permission. Because we have to be pragmatic at a certain point and see there are cases where we're going to use material without permission if we think that the risks are particularly low. Now, to make these assessments, quite a few times you need legal advice, and that's prohibitive for small and medium cultural institutions. Therefore, you need legally significant information that could provide this information to a legal advisor that could make these decisions en masse. So what you need from the small and medium cultural institution is to tell you, for instance, who the author is, or when the author was born, or when she died, the title of the work, the possible foundation. So you need a set of information which are factual, not legal. So anyone could give you this information. And then you need to have them to be documented, and then you need to make the decision. And I'm not saying this is easy, I'm not saying this is cheap, but this is something that we should be striving. So we have to break down the problem into modules and then express it somehow in machine-readable form, and then be able to actually massively assess the legal quality of the collections and make decisions. So that's with regards to clearance. And with regards to the licensing, accordingly, we need to start working on the concretes of the open licensing. Not all open licenses are the same or operate in the same fashion. In the previous talks, we talked about different variations of the licenses. Each one of them provides different value propositions for the producer and the consumer of or user of the information. And I think our task in this project is to actually make that really simple, provide some basic guidelines, and then once the tools are there, I think the SMEs, both the SMEs and the small and medium cultural institutions are going to make meaningful decisions. So we need to make it easier for them to make the decision.
Thank you, Prodromos. We heard that the communities, the enterprises.
What shall I throw in the mix? I think it's really worthwhile to borrow from other industries or other thinking methods. So you already pointed out that there is some business rationale that can be applied into this sector that we could probably benefit from. I like the presentation yesterday, the mathematical equation thing, where at a certain point it comes out, well, safe enough to do, right? So in this context, I would think, look at Google. When they start digitizing all books in the world, they don't start with digitizing the most difficult part, which is the in-copyright bit, right? They start with what they say is a safe bet, at least to start with. Risk low, profit high. Public domain stuff, and then they'll tackle the out of commerce, and only then, if they ever get to it, they'll get to the most difficult bit. So I think that's one way of looking at it. Let's not worry too much about the stuff that is really difficult to figure out, if we can. I mean, that doesn't apply to all cases. Fred is in a very unfortunate position that photography is almost all not public domain stuff. But anyway, that's one way to look at it, and the other one I like very much is from behavioral psychology. You see that coming up a lot lately in public sector situations where they're trying to change mindsets of large groups of people. And one of those things that they do is called nudging. So that's the case studies. You always hear that. If we come up with decent case studies where people like the Rijksmuseum, we've heard some really good examples. Retronaut, ArtCheck, those type of organizations get some real results for you. It'll be so much easier, and I like your community idea. If your peers do it, there'll be a vanity component into it. I want to be there too, right? So those would be my two main conclusions. Not technical, it's a mindset thing.
Thank you very much, Harry. And Leonardo, your point of view.
It's quite a very intricate issue, so I was trying to distill some feelings and thoughts. I mean, one is, I think there is a combination of factors, and something that has been said by my fellow panelists, there are many things I agree with. Now, in terms of the legal dimension, when you look at SMEs, you look at small companies, startups, young people, I would believe that most of them wouldn't be able to afford high competencies, and I think a way to promote simple and a support and a shared message on what you can do, you cannot do, I think it would be a great value. So spreading the word of tips and simplified ways in which you can let these people play. Because again, when you look at SMEs and startuppers, you can't really afford lawyers, and they're very expensive in Italy. I would assume they're more expensive abroad. So I think that is one dimension, is the way to go to promote this kind of toolkit to navigate through the legal point. And then, and I'm very much in line with this behavioral psychology element that Harry was referring to. For example, in this country, Italy, which I tend to know a little bit better, just a few years ago, the Ministry of Economics publicly said, with culture, you cannot eat. Because when he was cutting the funding to cultural institutions, he said this publicly. And I frankly believe this is madness to speak like this, because actually, now there is this whole makers movement, we're supposed to be makers, but all of us are becoming more and more consumers. So actually now, if you think of the past, there were a lot of people working and producing consumption for a few elites of the rich. Now actually, machines are automating stuff, and more, this unemployment thing we're looking at is actually a transformation of our economy. More of us are becoming consumers, and what we want to consume, we want to consume experiences, we want to consume culture, we want to reconnect with the past. So actually, there is a tremendous opportunity for this transformation in the economy. So the point is, besides that, the technical aspect, it's really a mindset. And the mindset means that we need to get point of broadcasting, institutions, politics, politicians, to get to be exposed to examples, messages, and little by little, this will create a mass effect, a tipping point. I do believe, we're very close to a tipping point in which things will really take momentum and start to change. We've been so hungry for the future in the past years and decades, and now that the future is here, look at the Asimo robot walking just these days or other things. Now we're hungry for the past. We want to reconnect with our identity, and at the same time, we want to consume experiences. So frankly, I would say that there's just tremendous opportunity to really spread the word. And institutions also have a great responsibility. I think even at University of Venice, we're sort of late, but better late than ever, to preach the humanities and the economics. And we're promoting master's courses and other initiatives where you're actually trying to make this happen. And so I'm very optimistic. I think we have to keep on hitting, you know, the message, and I think this will really become viral and take momentum. I'm a dreamer, but you know, I'm confident.
Thank you, Leonardo, also for the positive mind. So, supposing that this future is arriving, we have addressed the rights issues. It is a big will. What else beyond the rights impediment is preventing the creative industry from taking images, video, text, everything that is available online, and remix them into new creation? What else is happening? Even when important digital archives have been released for free reuse, such as at the Rex Museum, the Library Council in Ireland, the British Library, the Internet Archive, the Prado Museum, Europeana. The creative marketing is not exploding yet. It seems that there are other obstacles that are preventing a full reuse of right-free content. Which is your opinion about other obstacles?
Well, I think we have to think about the long tail. If you want a creative industry, you need for each real programmer that develops something new, you need thousands of people that are in the midway, that are in the tail of the equation. So I think you cannot only target professionals to have a new creative industry. You need to transform all these consumers into prosumers, into active participants. So what we need is that on these major portals and platforms, that there are also activities for the users that are already creative. Very small remix apps, very small storytelling apps, and that will bring the innovation. Yesterday someone questioned what is the innovation. The innovation is that when a larger group of these consumers become prosumers, then out of those there will auto-form a small elite of the people that really makes advances. But you cannot just invent this small group without targeting this larger group. I found in Daniel's magnificent expose, he showed a small workshop on multi-screen, where you see how you can learn children to play with that and to do something with that. But on the other hand, what he's doing is targeting very professional programmers also. So it's these both aspects that we need to work on.
Thank you. So technology and prosumers, Prodromos.
I would pretty much agree, but I think this is something that we know it's now almost 30 years. If we see the patterns of participation in open source projects, we're going to see something very consistent. You have 100 people, only 20 participate, and then you have about 10 actively participating and 1% making a true contribution. So this is consistent across the board. So we see that there are very few people that actually participate, and even less people that actually make a substantial contribution. So we're not going to be surprised. This is going to continue. So all you can do is to increase the pie. So these 100 people have to become 1,000, then 1,000,000. And the second thing is that in order to do that, you need to make the content truly reusable. So reusable doesn't just mean legally reusable. It means technically reusable, which means it has to be of some decent quality. It needs to have metadata. I'm emphasizing that because it's so crucial. or you need to figure out ways through crowdsourcing to enrich the content in metadata. And finally, you need to have the skills. So it's not a coincidence, again, that in terms of policy, in the UK we just had a big consultation about data skills. In the European level we are asking about data skills. Our universities are still, and schools still much in tune with the past century, giving consumer skills, whereas we need prosumer skills. We need people that actually are creators. We don't have users, we have user creators. That's what we need right now, but we still are, even our vocabulary and our lectures and our curricula are focused on passive usage. So this cultural shift is going to come through technical and educational means, and I think it's also part of what we do. We try to educate the professional community, and we hope that this is going to further impact upon society. But it also tells us that these projects that we do, we need also to start focusing seriously on the formal education and informal education, curricula, etc. Otherwise, this thing is not going to go anywhere.
Thank you very much, Prodromos. So, prosumers, technology, mass, quantity, quality content, education, there are many ingredients for our pie. Do you suggest something more, Harry?
I think one of the things we need to realize is that when you say the creative reuse market is not exactly exploding, what do we mean by that? And it's a matter of shaping our expectations around that theme. Yes, it's true. I have one example in Europeana of a company I know of that started off as a hackathon, at Europeana, that we've helped through to become a business. The company is called Artspresso. It's a Polish company who uses sources, great art, and basically serves that up on narrowcasting. So billboards, etc., etc. Not tremendously innovative, but it's great that they do it and they have a real business. I suspect there are more of those that we just don't know about who do these type of things. And we heard some great examples from people from Culture Label of people of companies who really do explode. But maybe it's also worthwhile thinking beyond that. It's not just companies doing things. Where we do see things explode on the reuse side is, for example, on social media, on Wikipedia. If you're at Europeana, we get 6 times as much impressions of the material of our partners on external platforms than we can get on our own platform, ever. And that's going to explode even more. The more good content you have and you push it out there on Pinterest, etc., that's where you'll see some real reuse. What happens after that, I have no idea. And I don't actually need to know. I'm just trusting that there's something good will happen with it, let's say. So I think we still need to do our best in that most narrow funnel of how can we help incubate great cultural entrepreneurs into successful businesses. That's something that we need to do. We will need to be careful that we don't limit ourselves to that small subset of the pie of reuse and start looking broader across these things.
Thank you very much. So we added incubation as preparing for launching the arrow that then should go by itself, using the metaphor. And discovering best practice, sharing best practices, sharing successful stories to inspire new players. Leonardo.
Well, I think I got caught by my dreaming attitude, and I started saying things that were actually responding to this type of question you quoted now. So I think something that I said gives you an idea of the way I looked at that. So rather than repeating some of the things, I would like to maybe think that if you look back in history, moments where you really had a takeoff in creativity, in production, you look at Athens, maybe Florence, you do find moments in time and space where you had the concentration of people blending and mixing. So strategy, innovation, entrepreneurship is about recombination. It's about seeing things a little bit differently and getting and putting together things maybe in a different way. So it's not really about inventing. It's just about recombination. And the way in which you can trigger recombination is by increasing the exposure and by bridging and putting people together. So that's why, for example, and again, as an example, I make a reference to this country. There's a lot of debate about, you know, should you give a subvention or help actually take money out. I think the bad thing is to actually give money to somebody. You're never sure what happens, but actually, if you use any money available to promote events that bridge ideas, that bridge people, that bridge institutions, teachers, owners of content and young people and old people together. So I think any resource that can be activated, be it private or public or whatever, and that can be directed to triggering this type of events that bridge competencies together across divides, because it's not a matter of being a specialist, it's about blending. So I do believe in the power of recombination. So I do see maybe a roadmap for trying to promote more of that. I mean the Remix Summit that the cultural label friends were showing is probably a top level example of that. But we can also try to think of a local, maybe, you know, lower tier, but even more accessible and affordable initiatives that can really trigger this. And so I would believe that in the end, you know, things have to be done in the localities and also activating minds and young children in the school books. I think we have to build the church of creativity in the way that some other churches have been built, and bring the competencies but also the spirits together, understanding what happens. And again, it's a major time in history. I think we're witnessing an era that nobody has seen in the past. So forgive me for being a dreamer, but I'm really excited about this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the dream. And now I would leave the floor for any possible contribution from the audience. Just quickly, because we are running out of time.
She doesn't mean money contribution, she means questions. So I saw somebody scared and no, because I said church. This is the moment in the church normally somebody comes around and asks for a contribution. I think she meant questions. Is that right, Antonella? Okay, just to make sure.
Thank you.
This actually was a church, so now, you know, you can look up and see that painting changed the use.
Well, so
Please.
See the viral effect.
Just kind of juxtaposing the culturally able presentation with the cultural heritage sector. I'm wondering how everyone on the panel can view how the cultural heritage sector can be more agile to be able to compete with more of the private sector companies like the ones that Cultural Label mentioned that have more funding, private funding rather than public funding, and that allows them to be more agile in some aspects. So what actions are being taken, or what kind of are you brainstorming to be able to compete on this level? Or is it not even to compete, but to do more private-public partnerships? Thanks.
Can we take this as a suggestion for further reflection? I don't think that we had the time to reply to questions. I think that public-private partnership is
I would only rephrase by
big,
replacing compete with work together. So
yeah.
I would rephrase that question.
Thank you very much. There are still some comments?
Just to come back about rights issue and communication between creative industries that has started to look yesterday, where are creative industries in our audience and why they do not communicate well with memory institutions. And my suggestion is to get the vision. Let's say we have memory institutions. Memory institutions are like old guys, old persons. They have a lot of memory and they very evaluate that memory. So actually, do they want to protect that memory as it was raised? No, I think they want to get more value for that memory. They want development. They want to be part of the vision of the future. That means these old people, they have memories and they want to contribute to the future. And what stops them, I think they do not see that creative industries are smart enough, intelligent enough to recognize that value and to maybe to organize some revenues. So I think what we should do, we should, I think, not only appeal to the youngsters as creative industries that are coming like young journalists and interviewing old people, asking a lot of kind of sometimes stupid questions, and so now they have become annoying. So I am appealing to the more mature industries, let's say like Google or BBC or others that actually are capable to create content with full respect to memory institutions. And then they need sophisticated business models. So I think that's enabler. Business models and kind of respect to memory institutions, not treating them like warehouses. Because in a lot of cases they are warehouses, like they are keeping, they are protecting stuff, and that's not what they want to be. They are intelligent entities.
Thank you very much. I think that it is a correct comment, and the observation of Prodromos, the comment about education, training, awareness is in this line, to establish a correct relationship with the memory institutions. So thank you. There are still 2 comments, 3, and then I think we have to,
yes,
unfortunately.
Before I applaud to the presentation of the curricula of those people, because it's very important, education. We heard about the education, very high education, and also we heard about the civil engagement as in the European community and in the personal communities. And I think we talk about innovation, innovators. I think we remixed people, bridging people, and I think most of us here are the kind of person who, and that's why I wanted to talk, because also Leonardo Buzzavo told about a dreamer. He is a dreamer, and I'm sure we are all dreamers. And I want to say that I'm a civil person who like to bridge people in my own town. And beginning at the university, we talk about engagement between transversal competencies between economy, cultural department, and the computer science department. I think most of those connections are very important today. So, and also in the town with the cultural organization institutions. So we need also bridging people who bridge people in their own local communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can keep still 2 comments, and then unfortunately we finish.
It's extremely useful that you are focusing so thoroughly on legal issues, on rights and licenses. And I was wondering whether within your project work, which I'm aware is not a research and development project, but I was wondering whether you're also going to look at the other side of how rights and licenses are being enforced throughout Europe, because we have different legal traditions. There are also supranational entities that can influence, sometimes with constraints, what's happening. And in order to allow this flow of information, it would also be useful to look at how things are being enforced on constraints on the institutional side. And he will be, some of you mentioned a toolkit, and that would be wonderful, a wonderful thing to have, or even a roadmap for content providers.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I can say that in the program of eSpace we have in mind guidelines and the support. But thank you for the suggestion. And another comment?
Thank you. So my name is Erika Cavriani van der Weyden, and I'm a researcher of the Foscari Department of Management. I just want to strike is 1 year that I'm researching on the project of Rijks Museum, Rijks Studio, and his interaction with creative industries. So I'm going to be in Holland also at the end of the month in order to research more in the culture industry, because we start with the creative industries and now we are continuing the research in the culture part, let's say, of the model. And maybe in the future we are very proud on sharing this research that we have done, because I think that the Rijks Studio is really a very interesting model that can help us to understand how you can integrate creative industries, cultural industries, building the possibility for the cultural industries to achieve a sustainability in an economical way, and also a possibility for the creative industries to have driven for innovation. So I think that this is really, I think in that moment, the best practice that we have just in that field that you are searching.
Yeah, thank you. And we wait for the results of your research. We will be very happy to share it in our community. Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to your comments. I leave the floor to Sarah for the concluding words.
I'm going to be brief because we've had a really, really rich morning and a rich conference overall, and I'm sure everybody's got lots of things to think through. I'd like to feel that we can pick up on Leonardo's optimism and go away from today feeling really challenged, but positive and optimistic about the work that we've got ahead. I think we've got some really good takeaways. This is a best practice network, so it really is about harnessing all of the best practice and the expertise that is amongst our many partners. And it's very much around harnessing the potential of this collective community action. And that, I think, is the most important message for us, as to how we work together as a network within the project and within the broader Europeana family. So I'd like to thank all of the speakers who've done a fantastic job over these 2 days. Particular thanks to our hosts and the conference organisers, Leonardo and his colleagues here at the university. Thank you very, very much. And just to leave you with the message that we will be having our next conference, probably around the same time next year. We don't have a date set yet, neither do we have a venue, but we will be letting everybody know, and another opportunity then to come together and let you know what we've been up to and to take us forward into the final phase of the project. So I wish you all a very safe journey, and thank you all for coming and making this conference so special for all of us. I believe there's a bus leaving in a few minutes. Antonella, am I right? For somebody? Leonardo, do you know that? There's a bus leaving in a few minutes for those people who are going on the trip.
Do a checkpoint here and they'll get instruction. That's the way. Yeah.
Okay.
It's only.
Okay, so thank you very, very much.